The funeral of a little boy's parents is being held with his other family members in attendance. After the funeral, the family members contemplate on who would take the little boy and raise him. One of the boy's uncle steps forward and goes closer to the boy, telling him that he is going to be the one to take care of him from now on. We discover that the boy's name is Shiro Maru and he is our main character. At the age of 15, Maru, who is coming back from school, sees a cat by the roadside, so he picks it up and takes it home. Back at home, he feeds the cat and gives it a name, Kuro. Maru didn't know that the cat he brought back home is actually a vampire until one day he comes back from school only to see a stranger in his house. After confronting the stranger, he finds out that it is just Kuro. Kuro then reveals that he is the oldest of the Servamp, and when he is exposed to sunlight he transforms into a black cat. Servamp deduces from the two words servant and vampire, and they're able to form a contract with a human and serve them in exchange for drinking their blood. It also turns out that by naming the cat Maru made a temporary contract with it, so he is now an Eve, which is the master of a Servamp. They're the ones who gives the Servamp a name and also a personal present. After that is done, the Servamp is bound to their Eve and can't separate too far from them. If they are separated for 6 hours, the Eve will begin to experience abnormalities on their bodies such as numb limbs, nausea, dizziness, stomach aches, dry eyes and dry skin. If they are separated for 24 hours, an anomaly is created and the Eve eventually dies. Maru takes the cat with him to go and see his friends. He tells them about the cat's origin, but none of them believe him. As he tries to explain further, a magician interrupts him, so one of Maru's friends who isn't a fan of magic tries to go home. But he is intercepted by the magician, who gets angry and bites the boy on the neck, making everyone close by run into a frenzy. It dawns on Maru that the magician is actually a vampire, so Maru tries to make Kuro fight it, however he refuses, saying that it's better for them both to run. Maru doesn't agree and tells Kuro to run away on his own. Meanwhile, the magician attempts to finish up and kill the rest of Maru's friends. Just as he tries getting close, Maru jumps onto him and covers the magician's face. The magician tries to stab Maru, but Kuro comes out of nowhere and takes a knife to the chest for him. In order to make Kuro heal faster, Maru gives some of his blood, thus sealing the contract. Shortly after, Kuro defeats the magician, but just as he's about to finish him off, Maru stops him. The magician turns into a doll and Kuro picks him up. They question the magician to find out why he tried to kill Kuro. The magician then explains that his master sent him and his name is Tsubaki. He also informs them how much hatred Tsubaki has for Kuro. Back at school the following day, Maru talks to his friend about the incident that had happened the other night, but they seem to believe that it was just a car accident. He tells them about the vampire magician, but they don't believe him. They didn't even remember seeing Maru. That night on his way back home, Maru is surprised to see the magician in his back as he passes through the market. Maru encounters Tsubaki for the first time. Apparently Tsubaki had come to save the magician. In the process, Kuro and Tsubaki talk. Tsubaki calls Kuro his big brother, which brings some kind of confusion to Maru. Kuro explains that he has 6 siblings and they're all Servamp. Tsubaki lists out the names of the Servamp and in turn announces that he is the 8th Servamp to be created, who should originally not have existed, which may be the reason the other Servamp did not know of him at the beginning. From exchanging words, Tsubaki and Kuro start to fight, but Maru intervenes. By doing so, he puts himself in a dangerous position and almost gets killed, but is saved by another Servamp named All of Love. The Servamp's Eve, called Misono, forces Kuro and Mahiru to follow him in the car. Misono introduces himself as the Eve of the 7th Servamp, All of Love. Maru finally gets to see All of Love at the entrance of the house and she tells him to just call her Lily. Inside the house, Misono finds out that Maru knows nothing about controlling a Servamp and instructs Lily to attack them. They try to escape but find themselves at the wrong exit. Out of the house, Maru notices some children in the building and inquires about their origin from Kuro. Kuro explains that the children wear subclasses which are vampires made by Servamps. Misono and Lily finally catch up with them and Misono prompts him to get a custom weapon from Kuro. Misono also promises to teach Maru how to use the weapon when he finally receives it. Later that night, Maru goes to see his friend Sakuya and lies about not knowing anything regarding vampires. Misono forces Kuro to give Maru a weapon. Kuro then takes Maru to his inner self, where he meets a part of Kuro which is in charge of his power. It leads Maru to a pile of gifts and asks him to pick one. He picks the simplest looking gift in the pile. Immediately after picking the gift, Maru is brought back into reality with his weapon. Misono is surprised to see that Maru picked a broom for a weapon. Suddenly the broom disappears and Maru then sees a mark-like tattoo on his hand, which is an indication of the weapon. The next issue Maru faces is how to bring forth and control the broom. He tries his hardest to activate the weapon but all his efforts are fruitless. The next day at school Maru doesn't see Sakuya anywhere, so he asks some of his friends about his whereabouts, but none of them have a clue where he is either. So Maru decides to go to Sakuya's house after school. Maru tries to go to Sakuya's house but something happens, he forgets ever going to Sakuya's house and also starts losing the memories he had with Sakuya. In all the confusion he began questioning himself as everything was becoming too much. As he questions himself some more he sees Sakuya. They try to catch up but are interrupted by a cry for help. They run into an alley, but it is at this point Maru realizes that it's all a setup. Maru finds out that Sakuya is actually a vampire. Sakuya explains to Maru why he had been losing all the memories of them together and tries to plant the feeling of regret into Maru's mind. Meanwhile the magician comes once again to try and kill Kuro, but just as he's about to finish the job Misono and Lily come to the rescue. Again they completely immobilize the magician, and just when they're about to kill Sakuya Maru stops them, leaving Sakuya a small window to take advantage and hit Misono. In a rage Maru starts attacking Sakuya. He unintentionally brings out his weapon and uses it to beat the vampire at one point. It dawns on him that if he continues then he may end up killing Sakuya. Kuro then becomes rogue as he is enriched with the feeling of regret, fear and rejection. He attacks Maru and tries to drown him. Sakuya tries to save Maru but instead he is saved by Dato. Dato the Servamp of envy. The Servamp shoots Kuro, making him come back to his senses. Knowing that they are outnumbered the magician and Sakura run away. Then Misono is taken to the hospital for treatment. The following day Maru questions whether or not he is happy that he met Kuro. He also asks himself what true power means. He goes to a cafe to get breakfast where he meets Tsubaki again. Tsubaki explains why Sakuya wanted to kill Maru, revealing the true story behind how Sakuya's parents made their daughter take her own life and made him lie to the police, all because of insurance profits. Tsubaki also explains how Sakuya became a subclass vampire to him. After hearing all of this Maru becomes depressed and starts running to school wanting to apologize for not understanding Sakuya. Upon arriving at school he hears that Sakuya had transferred to a new school. Still feeling sadder than ever Maru leaves the class but is shocked to see Sakuya. He chases after him to the top of the school roof where Sakuya jumps off the building, however he is caught by Maru. Meanwhile at the hospital Misono tries his best to avoid Maru but all his actions are in vain as Lily sends the hospital address to Maru. It's finally the end of Maru's first year of high school and the summer holidays had finally come. Maru and Kuro go to a festival and upon getting there a strange man gives Maru a briefcase. He asks Maru to help him drop the briefcase in the lost and found box, and being kind Maru agrees. While in a hurry Maru comes in contact with man holding a coffin and asks him if there is a lost and found section at the festival. Just before the man can reply there's an explosion. At that moment it comes to Maru's mind that he was actually holding a bomb. He begins panicking but the man assures him that everything is fine and collects the briefcase, putting it inside the coffin. Shortly after the bomb went off, but the coffin wasn't destroyed or scratched in any way. Later Maru discovers from Kuro that the man who helped him wasn't really a man but a boy with a grown man's physique. The boy is also an Eve to the Servamp of pride called Hugh. The next day Maru was captured by C3 and is being questioned in their lap. Meanwhile Kuro has his hand full with some of the C3 soldiers. C3 is a neutral organization that upholds the coexistence between humans and vampires. Maru eventually finds a way to escape the lab, but before leaving he pleads to the head of C3 that his organization should become an ally to him. After leaving the lab Maru shows up for Kuro by saving him. Maru then receives a call about a man who beat up a subclass. After hearing the description he finds the man. Maru and Kuro follow him into an alley but are surprised to see that he knew they were coming. The man uses some powerful tricks to weaken Kuro, and after seeing that he is getting too weak Maru gives him some blood which helps him regain his strength. Just as a fight is about to ensue another Servamp comes out of nowhere. This one is the Servamp of greed and he introduces the man as his Eve. He also says that the man isn't really a human but actually an angel. Maru pleads with them to join his alliance but it seems as if Greed and Kuro are on bad terms with each other, so he responds that they can't do it. Some days later Maru receives some news that Tsubaki wanted to kill the angel along with Greed at a concert in which the angel was performing. They go to warn and help fight Tsubaki if the need arises. On getting to the concert Maru and Kuro are surprised to see that Greed had killed all the subclasses in the concert. They started dialogue but the dialogue is cut short by one of the subclasses who hid herself from the attack. Maru pleads with Greed not to kill her. They keep her as a hostage. Instead Maru tries to get Leela's trust. He has the feeling that Leela may think he wants to use her to get information about Tsubaki. Maru sends a message across to Tsubaki that one of his subclasses is being held hostage. On hearing that one of his subclasses is taken hostage, Tsubaki tries to even the playing field by sending Higen to kidnap one of Maru's allies. Higen goes for the angel and Higen fight for a long time, but the fight seems to be going in the favor of Higen. Maru tries to help the angel, but suddenly Kuro turns into a ball. The tattoo on his hand also goes out and he loses his weapon. Higen, seeing that Maru had nothing to offer in battle, took the angel back to Tsubaki. Maru's allies come together to form a plan they would use to get the angel out of his predicament. They also come to find out that Greed was also kidnapped by Tsubaki. To finish everything up, Maru tells them that Kuro had turned into a ball. Maru and his allies knew that all these things were setups by Tsubaki, and so they needed their own counter-plan. Maru could see and talk to Kuro in the ball. He tried showing the rest of the group, but they couldn't see anything. He was shocked because he could see Kuro clearly. Hugh tries to destroy the ball, thinking that Kuro would come out. After much trial and failure, he gave up. It was left to Maru to find a solution to the problem. Maru tells Leela about the plan to use her as a hostage to get back his friends. The rest of his allies request that they try to free their friends without releasing the hostage because she is their trump card. Misono tells Maru that he may be able to find a solution to his problem if he would be able to go to his brother's lab. The next day, Maru goes over to Misono's brother lab, where he meets a weird kind of fellow. He also meets Misono's brother. He tells them his issue, but first the weird fellow wrote Maru's full name on his head. He then gave Maru some tea to drink. After drinking the tea, Maru started feeling dizzy and became unconscious. Misono brother read him a poem before Maru finally slept. Meanwhile, Tsubaki knew that Maru and his crew were going to attack, so he planned a diversion. The diversion was going to make them split up, which will leave them vulnerable in different ways. Tsubaki went into the forest. On seeing this, some of Maru's allies followed him. The rest went into the building. Tsubaki's plan was finally coming into play. Firstly, the people in the elevator became trapped, while those on the ground floor had to follow another way. All the people who followed Tsubaki into the forest wore costumes. They told Tsubaki to be careful of whom he hits, as his subclass was inside one of the costumes. Tsubaki had to be more patient and careful not to do anything stupid. Meanwhile, Misono and Lily were being faced by Sakuya. Sakuya explains the plan from the start to misdirect all of them, using Greed and the angel as bait to draw everyone closer to their death. On the other hand, Hugh had his hands filled with the magician and Higen. The angel and Greed were put in different cells on the top floor. Greed starts to lament about how the angel would die if they are separated from each other for more than 24 hours. Suddenly he hears the angel's voice. He is shocked that the angel had also been captured and put in a nearby cell. However, Maru wakes up and finds himself in Kuro's inner self. He sees all the memories of Kuro, all his regrets and the fears he has. At this point, Maru understood why Kuro had been acting weird. He manages to scale through all the memories and goes to meet Kuro. On reaching Kuro, Kuro asks Maru if it was wrong for him to kill his master in such a cruel way. Maru tells him that if he believes he's wrong, then he actually is wrong, but if not, then he should stop blaming himself. He tries to lift Kuro up, assuring him that both of them will face the regret together. Kuro finally accepts and follows him. The angel broke free from his shackles due to the false comments Greed had been making. He further went into Greed's cell and freed him. Both of them start fighting to the extent that the ground floor could feel the impact of their fight. At some point they realize that the fight is pointless, and so they stop. Greed claims that the angel knew literally nothing about him, and so he dragged him to his realm. Greed shows some of his past memories to the angel. He looks back at his past, on how he fell in love with his first Eve called Ophelia. He remembers the time she chose to marry a prince from the neighboring country just for peace for her people. He also remembers how she was publicly beheaded for treason. He remembered going back to the same country she fought for, only to see that it had been destroyed by another, even bigger and stronger country. Higen comes for another round of battle with the angel, but this time Greed isn't ready to sit back and watch. It turns into a 2-on-1 battle. The angel prompts Greed to avoid any contact that will lead to a cut on his body. Seeing that he is outnumbered, Higen decides to use his vampire powers rather than his normal magic tricks. Meanwhile, Sakuya tries to engage in a battle with Misono and Lily. Just as they are about to start the fight, an unexpected ally come to their rescue. It is a Servamp. The Eve to the Servamp tells them about Tsubaki's plan to make them split up. Suddenly a huge black lion comes out of nowhere. Maru is on top of the lion. Everyone is shocked to see that the lion is Kuro. The supposed black cat wasn't really a cat but a lion. Tsubaki's men knew that the tables had turned against them but didn't want to show it. Without any stress, Kuro and Maru defeat all Tsubaki's allies. The only issue was Higen. Agreed with the Angel. The fight between the Angel and Higan was a really heated one but ended with the Angel and Greed winning. They become so exhausted that they both fall unconscious. A few moments later, Kuro and the others were grouped with the Angel and Greed. Maru helped wake them up. Leela takes the necklace off of Greed. She did this as revenge for what Greed did to her friends and family. At that moment, Tsubaki comes out and collects the necklace from Leela. He destroys it with the intent that Greed would die. Suddenly a huge gust of wind started flowing and most of the people and vampires couldn't see well. Tsubaki wanted to use the period to kill everyone, but he is stopped by Kuro. The others used the chance to run to safety. Kuro and Tsubaki exchange words while fighting. They talk about their master that was killed by Kuro. Tsubaki also finally states why he had been killing throughout. He said it was for revenge. On the other hand, Maru is struggling to find where Kuro is. One of the other Eves tried to warn him not to go to the battleground as the fight was between Servamp only. But Maru doesn't hesitate at all. He continues on his journey to the battleground. Maru finally arrives and saves Kuro from a hit. Tsubaki then turns his focus to Maru. Seeing that Maru is in danger, Kuro turns into a black lion. He pins Tsubaki to the ground, but this doesn't stop Tsubaki from throwing a sword at Maru. Out of nowhere, Sakuya comes and takes the sword to the chest for Maru. Kuro turns back into a human. He and Maru run towards Tsubaki, dodging all the swords being thrown. At last Tsubaki finally quits. He tells Sakuya to inform the other subclasses to forget about him and live their normal lives. Meanwhile, Kuro and Maru go on living their free lives without any issues. This video ends here. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our latest video, and we will see you on the next video.